Hi, my name is Allison Burns. Today I'm going to be presenting my action research project about movement in the classroom. We'll start off with just a little bit of background information about me, the researcher. I earned my bachelor's degree from Briarcliff University in 2016 in elementary education. It is my third year of teaching. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I'm working towards my Master of Science in Education at Wayne State College. Why I decided to research the effects of movement in the classroom. Over the past few years of my teaching career, I have noticed how young learners have a hard time sitting for extended periods of time. I have noticed negative behaviors in the classroom because students are not getting enough physical activity during the day. To start off my action research project, I began with a literature review. One of the overlying themes I noticed in my literature review was the increased engagement and retention with the use of movement in the classroom. Engaged students tend to be focused, attentive, and motivated. By allowing time for movement in the classroom, it gives students' brains a break, which is beneficial for engagement and retention. Our brains are designed to learn short bursts of information, followed by time to process the information. It's especially important for those young learners. If student engagement is high, the likelihood is also high that students will catch on quicker and remember the content with ease. The next theme I noticed in my literature review was that movement increases time on task. Students often become off task during long periods of instruction. Students should be allowed time for movement after instruction to process the information and refresh their brains. By engaging in physical activity, the brain produces more norepinephrine that increases focus and attention, which also boosts time on task. Another theme that I noticed was that movement can be used to teach content. Using Kagan structures in the classroom can provide the use of movement and learning cohesively. I teach in a school that we really focus on using Kagan structures in the classroom. Engaged students are not disruptive. Engagement structures provide increased motivation, fewer discipline problems, and PIES, which stands for Positive Interdependence, Individual Accountability, so all students are accountable for their learning, Equal Participation, so each student is participating the same amount, and simultaneous interaction, where students are up and interacting with each other. I use the structures quiz, trade, and stand-up, hand-up, pair-up in this study. Another theme I noticed was that movement provides health benefits for students. Children and adolescents are expected to engage in 60 minutes of daily physical activity. Heavy push on academics and standards is taking time away from children moving and interacting with each other. Using movement and physical activity in the classroom has benefits on the bones and muscles, reduces the risk of chronic disease, improves self-esteem, and reduces stress and anxiety. With the majority of our students' days being spent in the classroom, it's important to incorporate movement so that they can get that daily 60 minutes in. Movement also improves student behavior. Asking students to sit for extended amounts of time may cause some students to exhibit negative behaviors in the classroom setting. This is especially true for young learners who are not quite used to the classroom setting. Movement is fun and engaging for all students. By implementing movement breaks in the classroom, students are less likely to seek alternate sources of stimulation because they have already had it. Next, I'll tell you a little bit about the participants in this study. They were 21 kindergarten students ranging from 5 to 6 years old, 10 females and 11 males. Participants were chosen by being placed on my class roster for the year. And then down in the corner, I have a picture of my students this year. Next, I'll tell you a little bit about the school background that I teach in. It is an elementary school in the Midwest with a population of about 750 students. 77% of the students receive free and reduced lunch. 49% of the population is Hispanic or Latino. 12% are African American, 17% are Caucasian, and approximately 21% are either Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander, or two or more races. The next step in my action research project was the data collection phase. Data was collected for 6 weeks between October and November 2019. I chose to note on and off task behavior on a weekly chart, pre and post assessment on letter sounds, a student questionnaire, and field notes. This is an example of what my on and off task behavior chart looked like. I chose to note on and off task behavior 3 times throughout the day at 9:30, 11:30, and 2:30. I chose those times during large blocks of instruction. I noted student behavior on this recording sheet. A plus indicated that the student was on task, and a minus indicated that the student was off task at that specific time. I also did a pre and post assessment with my students. They were assessed on their letter sounds. They were scored on a level 1 to 4, with 4 being proficient, meaning that they knew all 21 of the consonant sounds. Letter sounds is a major skill in kindergarten. Students received instruction to help with letter sound knowledge. So movement cannot be the only contributing factor. At the end of the 6 weeks, I did a student questionnaire with each of my students. It was used to gather students' thoughts of movement in the classroom. I asked the questions and then recorded the students' answers. The questions were, do you enjoy movement and engagement structures? What do you enjoy about movement and engagement structures? What do you dislike about movement and engagement structures? What is your favorite movement or engagement structure and why? And do you think movement and engagement structures help you focus in the classroom? The types of movement that I used during this study were Go Noodle videos and Kagan structures. I'll show you a little example of what a Go Noodle video would look like. So this was specifically one of my students' favorite videos, Go Noodle video in the classroom. They loved that they got to get up and move and run and jump, and they thought this one was so fun. The other type of movement I used in my study was Kagan structures. Like I mentioned before, I used the structures quiz, quiz, trade, and stand up, hand up, pair up. It gets students up and interacting with each other while also learning content. Next step were my findings. One of the findings that I found was that academic scores increased with the use of movement. At the beginning of the study, 2 out of the 21 students were proficient in letter sound knowledge. At the conclusion of the study, 12 out of 21 students were proficient in letter sound knowledge, and this was after the 6 weeks. The next thing that I found was that movement increased student engagement. At the beginning of the study, 83% of students were engaged after a movement break. At the end of the study, 94% of students were engaged after a movement break. So you can see on this graph here that it increasingly went up, the percent of students engaged during each week. And this was an average. The next thing that I found was that movement increases on-task behavior. On day 1 of the action research study, I noted that there were 11 off-task behaviors, so you can see that here. And that was at the behavior check times. At the end of the action study, on day 30, I only noted 4 off-task behaviors, so you can see that it varies here. But it went down, and on the last day, I noted 4 off-task behaviors. You can see some of these days the off-task behaviors were very low. And at the beginning of the study, they were a little bit higher. The next finding is that movement creates excitement for learners. On the student questionnaire showed that 100% of the learners enjoyed movement breaks. Many students said there was nothing they disliked about movement breaks. They were excited to talk about the movement and engagement structures, and they were eager to participate daily. In conclusion, movement in the classroom created many positive effects on students and the classroom environment. It creates excitement for learners of all ages, and movement is a vital part to any classroom environment. Thank you for listening to my presentation.